Who doesn't love a good coffee? So before we get into this episode, I want to tell you about the international sensation that is Final Press and how you can use the code AHB podcast to get 10% off. You all know I love a good coffee and I can be pretty particular with what I drink. Well, I've finally got my hands on a product that I absolutely love, and it is super simple but also so versatile to use. This means that you can tailor how you want to have your coffee when out in the bush. If you want to support the podcast and get an awesome bit of gear that I know you will love, then check it out. The link can be found in the show notes, socials, and on the website. Final Press, you'll love it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. All right, you'll know his tones from the episode 60, which was one of the funniest ones I've recorded, that's for sure. I had a great time doing it. And I was going to introduce him as Rob from Athena Spatial, but I think Survivor Man has a better ring to it. Mate, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I can't complain. Well, I'm good. Really good today, actually. Well, there's been some really good news. Literally before jumping on with you, the ADA posted out that down in Victoria that the lead ban ammunition has been completely overturned due to their advocacy. That's great news.
Great news. Yep.
I mean, look, I have said I'm not against copper and getting away from lead personally, but I don't think it should be forced upon everybody, especially when they're not taken into consideration. You know, people have spent lots of time and money for, you know, developing loads and hand loading and all those things. So I think it was just a really silly decision just to have a blanket ban. And the amount, and especially when they were talking about aerial culling and pro shooters still being able to use lead, you know, that just contradicted itself. So I'm really glad the win came through today. That's bloody great news.
Yeah, and I don't know that the concern about, you know, the poisoning effect for hunters is that valid. I'm sure that most hunters are pretty picky with the meat that they end up taking from whatever they're shooting. So I don't know that that was too valid of a point. I mean, the concern about secondary poisoning on other animals that might eat the carcass, possibly valid, but yeah, that's only half their argument.
It's pretty funny that you've got that side of it, and then talking about secondary poisoning, I just go straight to 1080 and sit there and go, they're happy to throw that around the bush.
Yeah.
We know pigs will be eating that as well out there, and we potentially, I know a lot of people eat feral pigs. So you sort of sit there and go, I don't know, like, is that really a justification when you're sort of saying this in one hand and on the opposite, you're saying something completely opposite?
Yeah. Well, anyway, it looks like common sense prevailed for now, and unless there's some other information that comes to light, it looks like it's been kicked to touch, which is good. Yeah,
bloody oath. And then I'm hoping this goes the way of your people. And when I say your people, I'm talking Queenslanders. I got sent, shout out to Royce, I got sent a media release today, which was fantastic. And it's coming from Queensland Country Life. And it's basically saying that the Australian Pig Doggers and Hunters Association are reporting that more than 35,000 feral pigs were shot on rural Queensland properties in 1 week.
Yep.
Now that's unbelievable numbers. That's just so fantastic to hear. Even more in 1 week. And then again on top of that, imagine what would happen if state forests were allowed to be hunted up there. Or not state forest, public land.
Just public
land,
up
in Queensland.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you go for a drive out west, you know, you go through there at dusk or dawn, and especially when you get out to the cane fields and other ag areas, and you see them everywhere. So I'm not surprised that, you know, that many are getting shot by shooters and hunters in a week. I think it's a pretty good bow in the quiver for arguing for public land hunting access up here.
Oh, could not agree more. It's crazy to think that results like that, people aren't jumping up and down saying, why isn't this happening on public land as well?
Yeah.
We talk about conservation. We talk about hunters playing such a vital role in the ecosystem as an apex predator, and yet you guys aren't allowed to access public land. That's nuts. It just makes zero sense. It's the one that's always sort of baffled me a little bit as to why the Greens and, you know, the AJP and people like that aren't all over hunters as being a solution, because we are.
The other part of it too, like obviously the pigs are a problem, but even the range that I go to, you have to drive through and along the boundary of a state forest just northwest of Gympie, and there hasn't been a single time I've gone to the range and haven't seen red deer crossing the road.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes, decent sized groups you can just see off in the fringe, and it's bordering a lot of farmland. The numbers up there, they're nuts. So I think that if we were allowed to, shoot the same species as New South Wales up here, you'd see a dramatic reduction in numbers in the first few years.
It's really interesting. We talk about it, and I talk about it a lot on the podcast, that it's always a concern of mine that you've got MPs looking interstate to push things along. Bow hunting ban's a perfect example in South Australia, and then Georgie Purcell wanting to push it there in Victoria. What about the other way? Where are the ministers going, hey, look at what's going on down here in New South Wales with state forest hunting, Victoria with public land hunting? The economic value is amazing, plus recreational hunting keeps numbers in check, and that is a big win. And then just exactly what we're talking about with 35,000 pigs shot in a week, and that's only on private property.
Yeah,
I'd love to know a little bit further to that, and that's a great. We talk about data, and I know we're going to get into data tonight, but we talk about that and say 35,000 pigs in a week. That's great. How much land was covered? So if we added up all the rural private property that was hunted in that period, compared that to state forest, it'd be really interesting to hear the percentage.
Yeah.
And then that argument to open up that public land. Because if you're talking, we knocked that many numbers off as hunters, and the private land that was being accessed was only 50% of the public land. Imagine what the numbers would look like if public land was open.
Yeah, that's right. And it would just, as we know as hunters, the animals will go where there's the least resistance. So if there's large pockets of public land that are a bit of a haven for them now, and you take those areas away, I think it'd be a pretty good effect. Well,
they go where there's the least resistance, or where people don't beep their horn at them, as we found out last time we hunted together. That was mate, that was gold. Oh, we've all done that though. We've all made a heap of noise and things like that. But I did laugh on the last episode when you said, all right, I've blown this episode out. You guys stay here. I'm out.
Yeah, that's right. Had my plan B and off I went.
That's it. Mate, let's get into what you're doing, because I love your stuff. You know that. We've been speaking for a long time about it. You've got some exciting developments coming through with it. So where do we start here? I mean, you use data, you create these amazing maps, and you're going a little bit further to that too now, which is awesome.
Yeah. So I've had, since I've started doing the maps, I've had a few inquiries probably over the last 6 or so months from hunters that wanted to just do a bit of general analysis on hunting in New South Wales, and, what forests were most productive and what areas they should focus on. Most of the inquiries, admittedly, are from Queensland-based hunters. And because it's such a drive, like you're looking, the closest state forest for me is 4.5 hours away. And generally I'm driving in that, somewhere in that kind of 8 to 10 hour range from home. So I can't really just get it done on a weekend, because you're looking at a day of driving either side. So I think a lot of people in my boat want to make sure that if they're going to, take the time off, that they're going to get as much out of it as they can. Obviously, you still need to put in the hard work to build your skills, or build your own knowledge of a certain forest. But if you can help narrow it down instead of scouting 10 forests over the space of 12 to 24 months, if you can narrow that down through a bit of research to 2 or 3 areas, you're a lot better off straight away. So I've had a few of those inquiries, and then often I just get the odd inbox message, people just asking me what I think, noting that I've looked at that a lot. And I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I dig into this as much as possible using public available information? So It helps me out too. So obviously I'm selling the maps, the satellite image-based maps through the Avenza app and the Avenza store. So if I can get a list for myself of the most productive forests, obviously that will drive the production of those maps. I haven't checked the last numbers, but I think I've got about 30 odd maps up there at the moment, 30 different state forests covered. There's obviously, I think there's over 150 or 180 state forests that you can hunt in New South Wales. I don't plan to map every single one, but if I was to do another, 20 to 50, I want to make sure I'm doing the ones that are being used the most. So it's a useful effort for me too. And yeah, pretty much what I've done is taken a bunch of publicly available sources. I've tried to apply a bit of quick maths in the background and come up with a value that I can rank the forest by, and not just the forest overall, but the forest by the species that we're allowed to hunt there. So I've basically finished. I'm at the stage where I am validating the results. So far, they seem quite reasonable. Obviously, when you're talking about these things, and sometimes the deviation between the top 10 and the next 10 might not be that much, but I'm in the validation stage. And the other thing I need to consider is how much of this information do I release widely? I don't plan to charge for it. I'm not going to upload them as individual products in Avenza and get people to buy them. This is publicly available information. And while it's taken me a lot of hours to do, I don't think that this is something to charge people for. So I am going to publish some of the results up on a Facebook page for everyone to view, but I'm just going to think about the best way to do that. So, I'm not going to rank every single forest in New South Wales in a massive list from 1 to 150 by species. So yeah, I'll have a think about it. I've already had a few messages from mates about what they think I should do, and obviously most people err towards letting everyone know everything. But I think, just a couple of, little top 10 per species, or maybe the best, 2 or 3 forests in each region or something like that. We'll see how we go.
It is such an interesting one amongst hunters of giving up forests that hold numbers of deer. And as you said, there is a variety of public source information, so anyone can access it. And we saw that with the LLS, what was it, the feral game? I think it was Feral Animal Survey Plan, whatever. I can't remember the name of it exactly. That had color-coded charts for every species of deer in every single LLS area. There was 8 of them off the top of my head. And then pigs, and then wild dogs, et cetera, et cetera. And it was something that blew me away, and I've talked about it on the podcast, that I did not realise the numbers and issues of wild dogs in the Greater Sydney region. I always thought it was a lot further out. That's amazed me. So very, very interesting. But that stuff's all public if people want to go out there and look for it. So you're doing something that's not secretive. It's there, but you're condensing it to help out other hunters, which I like. I think you can look at it 2 different ways, and I harp on about it a lot, probably too much at times, is that we need more hunters. It's not a bad thing to help out other hunters. And I do understand where people are coming from, because none of us want to go out and be unsuccessful every single time we go. So I appreciate where people come from that side of it. But then I also appreciate that if someone goes away and doesn't shoot anything for 10 times, and the Queensland example is perfect, that on average it's an 8-hour drive. If they do that 5-6 times and it's absolutely unproductive, they don't see anything, why are they going to keep on doing it? Now, that could mean that they just drop out of hunting. Now, I don't know what the retention rates are. Again, I'd love to know some of this data, but that is something that I think we need to be mindful of, because we need numbers. We need people that do what we do, and we need people who support what we do. It's that really fine balance, because, you always see the memes from the States that public land hunting, and there's like 50 people running, on opening day next to each other. And it's a bit of a joke about that. But the reality is you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to hunt when you can hunt, but not get sort of in other people's way as well. And that's a courtesy thing too. I find that's a courtesy. I know I've gone down to some popular forests, and people have been camping or in amongst areas I like to hunt, and I just move on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of forest out there. I don't
There's
mind.
heaps.
Oh, that's it. And that's, 100%.
And having a look so far at the results, like a lot of them, I think will be no surprise to people. And they might just say, well, yeah, we already knew that. So they'll, a lot of it won't be a shock, I would imagine. And then even the results that have been a surprise to me, they're a surprise to me because I didn't know anything to start with. So, there's no crazy outliers that I see. And I've got a few people I chat to fairly regularly that have actually probably more acquaintances now than customers, but they're always sending me little snippets of information here and there, and obviously I always keep that very private and don't share it, but it helps me confirm these things or otherwise. And one example is I've got a guy that hunts around the Lithgow area. We chat quite regularly, and the initial information I shared with him was no surprise to him. Because he's been to most of the forests around that region. However, they were a surprise to me because the DPI species reports didn't necessarily reflect the rating I ended up with. But then, while I can now rank them with a little bit more specificity, if you actually look at the spread between the results, it's not that dramatic. So I suspect that a lot of it won't be groundbreaking to people. But really, the target audience isn't experienced hunters. It's not people that know the forest in their backyard like the back of their hand. It's people that are where I was 2 years ago that have just started hunting and want to get some relatively quick success. You've still got to earn it. If I told you what the best state forest is in New South Wales for whatever species, it doesn't mean you're going to go there and get that. So they've still got to earn their game. But I think the target audience is more those people that are just getting into it, much like when, Hunters Campfire kicked off and they did that series of episodes at the start where they picked a few state forest systems that were really no surprise to experienced hunters, but it helped out the new guys. And I was one of them at the time, and I was grateful for it. So, if I can give this out for free of the community and it helps a few people out, then that's great.
And I think that's the attitude to have going forward, that it's not this secretive thing, and the forests are so big that you can say, oh, there's a heap of deer in this forest, but doesn't mean, like, I've hunted plenty of forests where there's been 40 spots and they're booked out. I've never seen anyone. So the reality is it's where you're going. And then also, is it a bit of an additional challenge to go a bit further than the next person, explore a bit further than the next person, get away from the road a bit further. I see those as not bad things necessarily. Like, I guess it's just your perspective and how you're looking at it and approaching it. Yeah. It's the same as private. Like, I know people that have private access and struggle to get a deer off it. Yeah, and then I know people that walk there and can shoot something in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is.
You still got to put the work in on the ground.
Correct.
And, it's no surprise if I said that in the New England region that Nundle was the best performing forest for deer, which that is the top performing forest, by the way, according to the numbers that I've crunched. I'm going down there in a couple of days, and Nundle's not going to be my main focus. Tugelo, Tamala, they're great forests. If you look at the terrain in them, while their numbers or the ranking that I've come up with might be very slightly lower, the last time I went to those places and I scouted them, they were great. So I'm going back there as opposed to Nundle as my main focus.
And data's only as good as the reporting of it. Like, if you're looking at, you look at the harvest returns, I always have a bit of a giggle because some of the forests that I know hold a lot of deer, people aren't harvesting any deer in them. And it's like, well, I don't know how accurate that is. So you're relying on the honesty of people to report what they're getting. And hey, maybe they just had a bad couple of months. Who knows? Like, it's, the reality is you just don't know. So there's a lot of assumptions going on in that part. But you still got to go in. And then I honestly think it's regions. Like, if the deer are in one forest, generally in that vicinity, they're probably in the others.
Definitely.
And it might not be as hunted as hard, which then can be another benefit too. So I don't mind trying different forests, and it's where I go wrong, to be honest. I don't hit the same forest over and over and over and really get to know it. And that's something I've put my hand up for. It is what it is.
Yeah.
that's part of the fun. Like, okay, I'm not traveling, 16 hours like you guys up there are. So I'd appreciate if I, was spending my time a bit more wisely. But for me, shooting down somewhere 3.5, 4.5 hours away and just exploring, it's not the end of the world.
No, definitely.
It's more manageable. Yes, I'd love if I got deer all the time. I also don't think I would, that the challenge would go.
Yeah.
And if it felt like it was just easy to do, that takes the allure of hunting away from me. That turns it into shooting rather than hunting.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah.
Like our last trip together, I had such a blast. I didn't see anything, but I had fun exploring, finding new sites, sign.
Yep.
It's areas that I'm going to go and have another sticky beak at in a couple of weeks, because I really feel that it probably has been untouched, and that's good. Like, I got no issue with that. Let me spend some time in there. If I get lucky, I'll get lucky. If not, so be it. Like, still getting away, getting out of the city, camping, like, it's all wins anyway.
Yeah, I think sometimes I look at some of the forests that are a little bit closer. They definitely don't report as well, but you look at the ground and it just looks so challenging. Like, you're like, all right, there's one, dominant valley system there. I know that it's not going to be an easy walk down in the bottom of that valley. But, once you get there, you're probably going to have a great hunt. Like, you're going to find heaps of sign. You're probably one of the few people that could be bothered trudging down there that week or that month. And, yeah, all the more rewarding once you get the spoils, I think.
And look, I've been in that situation. I've gone out to Belanglo, and some of Belanglo spots are just, oh my God, you look at it and go, how the hell do I even get down there?
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you could and you spent the time in there and do a big trip in and maybe even camp in there, geez, it would have to be good, because you got to sit there and go, not many people are getting into that area.
Yeah.
So the reward, as I said, do the miles, get the smiles. I like that saying.
Yeah.
And that's another challenge, another element to doing what we love. So I can't say that being a bad thing. And I like what you're doing and putting it out there, not charging. Then you've got the maps, and I think they're brilliant. I know Frank loves them. I think he's got I'm dubious when you said there's you haven't done them all, because I reckon he's going to make you at some stage.
He's definitely sent me a few requests. He's responsible for a few of the rapid uploads.
Would he be the main customer at the moment? I mean, does he? I think he's just got you on monthly retainer. Here it just keep dropping money in.
He's my only subscriber.
Frankie, we love you. Look, I think they're great. It really helped, and we spoke about this on episode 60, that things went south. Being able to look at the maps and get satellite imagery on top of it really did help out that other couple of days when we were just thrown into somewhere none of us had planned to be.
Yeah. And I mean, we were lucky in that situation. Like, we were going back into town once our camp got trashed. So, really we had the chance to get on Google Earth and do a bit of a scout. But every other time I've been to a state forest, I've never had reception. You might be able to find, the odd Wi-Fi tree or 4G tree and get it, but it's not usually enough to download imagery in my experience. And that's why I put them out there. I think most people are pretty happy. I think when I first put them out, I probably didn't explain it well enough, but I think some people might have thought it was more like Google Earth, where you've got that unlimited zoom. And how, each time you get a bit closer to Earth with your eye, so to speak, the detail increases. But they're a static image, but they're basically at about the second best level of detail you can get. There's usually somewhere between 12 to 14 zoom levels with satellite imagery. And I think I'm about 1 or 2 off the bottom, but I am limited somewhat by the Avenza uploads. Otherwise, I'd go for max resolution. But I think people realise that now, and I've got that one up there for free, the Borrabee, however you say it, State Forest. So people can have a look at that for free and see if it's for them before they fork out a bit of coin for one. But I'm getting a lot more good feedback lately. I've changed a few of my back end processes and how I upload to just get that extra bit of crispness in the imagery that's available. I think people are starting to appreciate that. Some of the other feedback I've got, which has been really good, is people are seeking those tracks to be outlined on the imagery. When I first did a bit of a test of the market of a smaller group, a lot of people were like, no, take the track information off it. Just give us the contour lines and, the elevation heights. We'll see the tracks in the imagery. But, you look at some of the forests they just look like one big pine forest, or, Moorabool doesn't have that much detail that you can see in parts of it. And I think the tracks would be more useful there. So next year, I think I'll look at developing a bit of a better, secondary and tertiary track data set and put that up there as an option for people. So, yeah, hopefully they find it a bit more useful.
One thing I'd love to see is camping spots, because you go to a new forest, and I've had it a couple of times. I remember going to Green Hills State Forest down south, and I could not for the life of me. I spent half a day, got there, it's a 4-hour drive. Got there after dropping the kids off in the morning, late, mid sort of day, just after. Driving around trying to find a camp spot is not fantastic. And I know there was multiple times in that forest alone, I tried different areas and could not find a decent camp, and ended up having to drive all the way back into Tumut and stay at the caravan park.
Yeah.
I'd love to see hunters jump in together, and it's not giving away spots for hunting. It's giving away spots just to camp, and having something on those maps like that, just to make people's life a little easier, especially if you're trying out a new forest and you don't know what it actually is. And, you can jump on Google Earth and you can try and find information. There's been plenty of time like, oh, that looks like a nice open clearing, and you get there and go, Jesus Christ, that's not going to work.
It's full of wattle or something like that.
Yeah, and especially after the fires down south now, that it's not you just don't know what you're going to get sometimes. So little things like that I think would be really handy. I know it's probably putting you under the pump to do more stuff, and I know it takes a bit of time as well, but like all these little things, I mean, the sky's the limit, isn't it, at the end of the day? So, but I know when we went to Nundle with the Hunters Campfire Hunt Camp, having that little Wi-Fi signal on the map, geez, that was great, because I'd never been there. So being able to find camp off your maps, being able to find the Wi-Fi spot or the place to get reception, that was such a help. And, having those things there, I think it's well worth the, pittance of the money that you're, charging. So, I get it. I just think it's a great resource for those people that, if they're traveling a lot, if it's a new forest, even if you're experienced in there, just to have something like that, it's just better than the standard Avenza map per se.
Yeah, cheers. And you know what? Like, I still use those DPI maps every time I go hunting. Obviously, you legally have to have them, but like I was talking about with the tracks before, those the DPI maps we have to carry have all that awesome information about a lot of the tracks that I don't have on the Athena ones. So I flick back and forth often for them. Sometimes you can kind of tell where they are, like usually where you find forest meeting bushland, there's going to be a track in an active forestry state forest. But yeah, I always switch back between the two. And the Avenza app itself, while I absolutely don't get any kickbacks from them by plugging them, I think it's a really useful app for free. So what I do is I have a data layer. If you're familiar with the app, you can drop your pins and mark your tracks and plan your routes and all that within the app. And you can save all that information on top of your state forest map, whichever one you're using. What you can then do is link that to other maps of the same area. So I basically have, when I go down to Nundle later this week, and I'm hunting 2 of the forests in that area, I basically have one mega layer that has all those state forests within kind of a 30k radius. And then every map that I download, which fits in that area, I link that data layer to all of those maps. So that every time I switch from DPI back to my Athena map, or I switch from this state forest to that state forest, all that information is still there. I think that's awesome. And if you have the paid versions of Avenza, you can actually export that data back out, chuck it in your Google Earth app on your desktop. If you use that for e-scouting, it's pretty cool.
Well, Frank's given me a bit of grief as not knowing how to use Avenza. And I agree there are some limitations. So I recently just upgraded my iPhone because something wasn't working right. Like I know we spoke about it in the last one when I'm walking out and it's turning around in circles for me. And I don't understand why, because we had spoken about you need to be moving to use Avenza for it to get an accurate sort of grasp on what way you're traveling in your GPS.
Yeah.
Even when I'm doing that, it's swinging and going 180, 90-degree angles and being all over the place.
Yeah. Maybe it's because you're a super slow and smooth hunter.
But
So it basically works by taking a moving average of your location plot. And then it can tell what direction you're going. And then it can tell you with that little arrow what direction you're facing. But yeah, if you're going too slow or you stop for too long, it'll lose it. And then sometimes it gives you that weird 180 spin. And I've actually kind of anecdotally noticed, or may have only paid attention at certain times, but I've noticed that it's worse in some areas than others.
okay.
I don't know if that's, an issue with the GPS chip in my phone, or if it's just something to do with that part of New South Wales. I'm not sure, but yeah.
No, it's an interesting one for me because there was a few issues with my old phone and I was feeling that it was pretty ordinary sometimes. So I thought, well, I've upgraded phones, haven't been out for a hunt with the new phone, as I said, a couple of weeks' time. I know we were going to try and catch up with this trip you're going, but I'm just not going to be able to make it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
And look, probably good for you because another snowstorm or some bloody thing would go wrong. So it's probably better for you to head out without me.
The weather's looking good.
Yeah, don't say that, mate. I think we said that. But yeah, so I'm really interested to see how that goes. I always carry my GPS anyway, so I can run off that and not have to worry because the Garmin will sort it out if I get completely stuck.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that with the new phone, it will be able to fix up those little issues for me. So we'll wait and see with the next hunt. I'm going to still use that. Now, I've got no idea. When you're talking about layering and all that, I really battle with that sort of stuff. And Frankie was into me because I could not send the GPS coordinates through Avenza for the life of me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not asking for a tutorial here because I don't want to bore the listeners, but is there somewhere that you can jump on and find that stuff?
Yeah, Avenza have on their website, so if you get out of the app and just look them up through your web browser on your phone or your computer, they have got a few how-to guides. Because they're not specific for hunters, you kind of have to put two and two together yourself a little bit. There are a few things on there. I would say that maybe if you just pick an area that you're not too concerned with and just get into the background of Avenza, download the map for the area that you may not necessarily hunt and then create a fake set of data for it. And maybe just practice moving the data around, transferring it or linking it to other maps so that if you accidentally delete something, you're not losing 3 years of hunting information. That might be a way to go. Otherwise, I might look at doing a few more short how-tos. I've got a couple on the Facebook page there on how to link stuff and create packages where you can more seamlessly scroll from one forest to another by basically joining the maps up in the background. So yeah, I think you just find an area that you're not too worried about and give it a crack. But one of the limitations of the free version is you can only have 3 active layers, or one.
It's 2, isn't it?
Two it might be.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, I do pay for the next level up, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah. But look, that's one I will invest in. It's because I've got the 2, and especially when you're jumping between forests all the time, making them inactive, and it's just a bit of a pain in the backside. So I know I definitely have to upgrade. And then your maps don't seem to worry about that though, because when you purchase them, they're just sitting in the background as a separate one, like not as free because you've actually bought them. So that I also found handy because you can always use them and they're always there. So even if you were to have the free version, you can chuck your DPI ones on there, but if you're using your ones and dropping in all your points in those, they're still there, which I found super handy without buying that next level subscription.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is have one massive active layer for the whole state if you wanted to. Just means you have to unlink it. So if you can only have it linked to 2 maps at once, you just need to unlink it from one before you go hunting in your third forest.
Yeah, right.
And then you've just got to make sure that layer is actually made active when you go to start adding points. Otherwise, you'll add a few points, and then you'll go to edit them, and you'll see that there's a new random layer 4 has been added, and you've been adding to that, which isn't the end of the world, but yeah, it can catch you out.
So let's jump into you though and find out a bit more about you, because obviously you've been on the Hunters Campfire, their podcast, talking about all this stuff, and I think there's a lot more detail on the maps, which I advise anyone, if you haven't heard it, jump across and check it out, especially the video clips, because I know the boys were blown away with the stuff you were showing them. But you, mate, how'd you get into hunting? Why deer? Like, how did it all come about for you?
Yeah, so I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself after a bit of a bout of shoulder surgery just as COVID hit, and I thought, oh geez, I've been meaning to get my firearm license for a few years, and I had a few mates that used to go hunting. I'd never been with them, and yeah, basically had the time to sit there at a computer and go through all that admin. And yeah, just fell in love with it straight away. I think, obviously I chase deer. I chase deer when I go to a forest. I do like getting goats as well. I don't really go for pigs. I rarely shoot them when I see them. But for me, it's while I take the meat of any animal that I shoot, for me, it's really the challenge of hunting that I'm drawn to. It's just so many things you've got to put together. I love sitting around planning a hunt on a Sunday arvo that's a month away, and I love sharing it with my kids. I take my boys down there with me whenever I can. While they're not old enough to hunt themselves yet, they're still allowed to come along at the moment. And yeah, once I started, it was very hard to stop. I've also got a friend in New Zealand, which is very fortunate. He invites me over there all the time on the trips that he does. He's always getting away, basically every month or so. He hunts public land over there for red deer. He also hunts a lot of the public land and chases tahr and chamois, and he's got access to a few ballarded blocks as well for Sitka and stuff like that. So that's a really good opportunity. Taken him up once, went over there in April last year, and we got the end of the season where the tahr, their capes are really fluffed up and maney, and they look awesome standing on the edge of the rock there, and they got these huge maney capes flapping in the wind. Managed to get a couple of bulls, took the capes, took the heads. We chop it up. We chop it up onto the top of this range in the South Island. But my mate said to me, he goes, you're going to earn your first tahr. He said, we got the easy way up here just because it saves a few days because you've come over from Oz. But he says, you got to carry them down to earn them. So we trudged down this mountain range over about 14 hours. And it was one of the hardest things we've ever done. But it was a great hunt. We had awesome weather. The weather held off, and we only really got rain and a bit of sleet on that last day as we were walking down the mountain. It was just a great experience. I can't wait to take my kids over there in a few years' time and share that with them. I think it'd be awesome. But yeah, it's just the challenge of it that drew me to hunting and keeps me hunting. I know a lot of people, they hunt for food or whatever it is, but it's the challenge for me.
I love hearing why people hunt, because it's such a vast array of reasons, and it's great. I'd hate if everyone did it for the same damn reason and what it means to them. And I think that's really an important one for all hunters, because it's almost built into your DNA as to why you do it and why you love it. And it's very rare that you meet people that don't absolutely love it, whether they drop off or whatever it might be. But generally when I speak to people that hunt, they really are just so, it just becomes so ingrained in them and they can't think of doing anything else. And I'm in that bracket, like going back, and the last couple of days I've been reflecting. I've been lucky enough to be asked to be a guest speaker at the ADA Sydney branch. And I was going through and making the PowerPoint presentation for it. And it just got me thinking about all the cool stuff, some that I remember as vivid as yesterday and some not so much. And then why I got into hunting in the first place and how, and it's cool, like just reflecting and reminiscing. And I couldn't imagine not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. Couldn't imagine not doing it.
Yeah. And even I don't get to do it anywhere near as much as I'd like. My wife thinks differently, but I sit there and go, I'm just hanging and chomping at the bit to get to the next one. And I'm planning it and I'm thinking about it. And there's always something on the go. Like I just bought a couple of new trail cameras. I got one solar one and, so I'm just dabbling in all these different things to test out new products and think about different stuff and why I'm going to use this and how I'm going to use that part.
Yeah.
Always trying to refine my gear. I love the tech side of it. I love the information, learning, talking to people. And it's been such a blessing with the podcast is getting to talk and meet so many different people. And, that's how you and I got talking through that. And I'd hope, I think we're good mates now. And I didn't bury you in the snow. That happened all on its own, mate. So, but I sort of sit there and go, that's part of the experience of it and sharing that and being able to think about planning new trips. And it's on that. It's like, that group that we went away with, everybody's talking about when are we going to do it again? And that's cool. That is just, I'm thinking about that trip. And it's probably a year away, but I'm thinking about it and thinking, oh, geez, I had so much fun here. Well, where do we go now? I'm not organising it because I cop so much crap, but that's all right. We'll, cross that bridge and do something else. But
yeah, the mateship side of it is awesome. When I first got into it, my first 12 months, I pretty much did it solo. My very first trip, I went with a mate. But the first few times after that, I was just on my own. And I love that. Like I do love getting out in the bush on my own. I was pretty lucky when I started hunting with the fact that I didn't have to learn how to navigate. I didn't have to, learn bushcraft. I already had that background. So I pretty much just had to learn the species and how to hunt them, which meant that it was a pleasant experience for me straight away.
Yep.
I wasn't fighting the elements. I wasn't chasing comfort. I was chasing goals and it was super enjoyable. But since going on the Hunters Campfire Camp, I've actually been hunting with other people now each time. And even when I go down later this week, two of the guys from that camp are just by chance going to be there. So I'm going to, set up a camp with them. And I think it's awesome to come back. You go out for a hard day hunting. I won't be on my own. I'll have one of my kids with me this time, but the two of us will go out there and spend the day together, but then we get to come back to this awesome camp at night and have a fire and a bit of a yarn and swap stories. And I love that too. And, these guys are people that I'd never met until earlier this year, but as soon as you catch each other on the chat, it's like talking to an old friend.
I think I'm similar. I had the same sort of deal as I used to just go out on my own. The whole thing around it was more the same deal. Learn the animals, learn what to do from the hunting perspective. I wasn't I had a couple of experiences, didn't really enjoy them with other people. I think it depends on the people because now I'm starting to change. I always sort of thought, I don't really, it's hard to explain. I think those first couple of experiences with others, it just wasn't the right fit for me. Yeah. And it wasn't people I got on with really well because now I look at it and that hunt we've just been on and even the Hunters Campfire one, being around people that I actually thoroughly enjoyed being around changed the whole dynamic of it.
Yeah.
And that made a big difference originally. And I remember saying it on the podcast. I can't remember what episode or anything like that, but I remember saying it wasn't for me. Like I like hunting on my own. I like going out there on my own. And I think that's just come back. That's I've gone like a 180 and I feel like a bit of a hypocrite, but it's also part of the whole experience is learning new things about myself and others and being around good people that I really like. And it just became easy and it became far more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And now I am sort of leaning towards that. I don't want to go on camp on my own. I'm happy to hunt on my own. That's never been an issue. And I've done it with other people too. And I've, again, sharing camp with good people, that has also helped. I don't mind hunting with other people too, even if it's carrying Frodo's gear up and down mountains for him. It doesn't bother me because it's a laugh and it's having fun.
Yeah.
I think it's the people. And that has been a big change to me, which has added this extra element to the enjoyment of it, which has been fantastic. And I appreciate that now probably a little bit more than I ever would have before.
Mm. Yeah, well, if I didn't go on that camp earlier this year, I don't know if I ever would have gone down the road of organising, not group hunts, but organising group camps and catching up with other people or making an effort to do it. I'd probably be happy enough, I guess, to just do it by chance. But, maybe I would have stuck down that path of quiet camps, hidden away, avoiding the major areas, trying to do it solo. But yeah, I'm sure over time I'll flip back and forth between what I prefer, but for now I'm enjoying it.
Well, that's it. I mean, look, it's funny because I sit there and go, one of the boys that joined us, Frodo, literally lives 5 minutes away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And if we hadn't gone on that care, we wouldn't probably be as good of mates we are. And we met at the Hunters Campfire one, then obviously come onto this one and catch up and talk regularly. So that's
awesome.
It's great. And that wouldn't have happened without that. So I really enjoyed that. And I'm so glad because it was a flip of a coin to go for me to come up to the Hunters Campfire one. And I'm end up just going, nah, stuff it. I'm definitely going because it was in the back of my mind. Oh, do I want to do it? But then I'm so glad I did because I don't think I would have had the experience. I wouldn't have had that snowy mountains trip that we did in the snow together. So I'm a big believer in things happen for reasons, and what's meant to be is meant to be. It's just going to play out how it should. So I wouldn't change a thing, and it's been so much more enjoyable going forward. And I can't wait to see what the next couple of trips and things like that hold in store. I'm going to out Frank because I did throw up some dates today in our chat. And he's going bird watching apparently. Now, he didn't elaborate which bird.
Swans?
Maybe.
Watching?
I don't know. Look, I had to laugh. I was driving to school this morning and my son, who's only 4, is sitting there and he has got bin chickens dialed in. And he saw one flying along and he went, look, Dad, there's a bin chicken. I was like, well done, mate. You've won up on Frankie. And that's what I was thinking. But maybe I shouldn't hassle him because he's not here to defend himself. But I did have to have a giggle. But even things like that, they are so funny to just reminisce. And I don't listen to my podcasts back. I do when I'm editing, obviously, but I don't listen to one outright. And I did with episode 60, and I sound so dorky, but geez, I was laughing the whole time. And there was things that I'd forgotten that we spoke about. And then there was things that we didn't even cover. So I actually do have to shout out to Frank's brother, Anthony. We found, or I shouldn't say we, he found in my presence his first cast antler.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I forgot about it altogether, and I'm so devoed we didn't get to talk about it on the actual podcast.
Yeah, how cool
So
is that?
I was flipping through photos today and saw it and went, oh, man, I've got to do a shout out to him and say that was cool. I was walking down with him, just checking out some new area, and he found it. That was so cool, and I've got a really good photo of him. I'll chuck on the socials at some stage.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've never found them. That's awesome.
I haven't either. And I sat there and just went, how cool. What an experience for him to find that. He's one up on me. And I said that at the time. I was like, that's so cool, man. I haven't ever even found one. You just got one on your, I think it was his first state forest hunt. So that's unreal. Stuff like that and being able to share that too, that was cool.
I'll tell you what, now that I know a bit more about hunting, that's the type of thing that I probably would have done before I had all my licenses and permits lined up. Like if you're super keen on hunting and want to get into it, but you don't have your firearm license or you don't have a bow or you don't have your R license yet, there's nothing stopping you from, downloading a map of an area and going and you can still get the DPI maps. If you get on someone on Facebook, they'll share it with you and jump in there and look for antlers, or just build up your knowledge of areas of sign and all that. That's probably something I'd do if I had my time again.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I'd do is trail cameras.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I am significantly going to invest in more trail cameras. I want a little army of them because I've got, I think, like 8, but I'm missing one. I don't know who I lent it to. I know I lent it to someone, I don't know. So if you're listening and you've got my trail camera, please send it back. But I've got about 8. I want to get more and I want to leave them out on a bit more of a rotation. That's why I'm trying out this solar one.
Yep.
So I grabbed some rechargeable lithium batteries for it. Chuck them in. It's nothing special. I think it's the Audi brand.
Yep.
I'm not sure what, Signify or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I bought it secondhand. There was just 2. I just scrolled through Marketplace and there was 2 that came up, 2 brand spanking new ones, never used, and they were just like I think $30 and $50. And I went, yep, grab them for sure. Then I obviously had to pay for batteries again. I hope my wife's not listening, but then I've now got them and I want to try them out because I really want to have the ability to just put some more out and get a heap of footage and start to use that to really show some areas. But then I'm also I'm making a couple of videos with the footage.
Yep.
And just throwing them up on YouTube because I like watching it. So I was like, yeah, if I like watching trail camera footage, man, maybe someone else will. So that's a little bit of fun for me too. I did have to laugh. Someone shared around the other day about how much hobbies, the average hobby costs like $255 a year. And that seems really expensive, especially if my wife's listening. So, yeah.
I think I've sent about $250 worth of arrows into the bush in the last 2 weeks since I bought my trad bow. But yeah.
Well, tell us about that. Because I've jumped into the bow, but I'm with a compound.
Yeah.
And I think it was last lesson I talked about the destruction of a couple of arrows because of my friends shooting into my garage brick wall as a backstop because they can't hit the target. But you've gone a next level again and gone the trad bow. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, I can't really remember why I ended up settling on a trad bow. I've got a pretty old compound bow sitting up in the shed that I had before my shoulder injury and haven't pulled since then. But my youngest is, he cannot wait to get out in the forest and hunt with me. And I said to him a couple of months ago, I said, well, mate, you've got a few years before you can do it. I said, in that time, why don't you save up and get yourself a bow. And then by the time we can unleash you on the forest, you can have that skill already built up. And all you need to do is, learn how to hunt rather than learn how to shoot a bow. So he saved up and I eventually took him down to one of the local archery shops and I was just in there and I was looking at him on the wall and I was like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that. Actually, that's where I first got onto it. When I was looking up, I was trying to research buffaloes for Ian and the boys, and I came across the Becoming a Bowhunter podcast and was listening to a few of the episodes on buffalo up there, and one of them was by a trad bow hunter, and that's what made me first think about it. And then, I've gone into the shop with a young fella, saw one on the wall, and I thought it was pretty reasonably priced. I got not a cheap one, but just a decent entry-level one, and that was it. I'm lucky that I've got enough space up in our yard to set up a few hay bales and shoot at home, which is pretty good. So yeah, I've been out there most mornings and afternoons slinging arrows. I'm slowly getting that group down. I can probably hit a plate fairly reliably at 20 meters now.
That's good.
Yeah. I think I'll work on it a bit more before I take it out on a proper hunt.
Yeah.
Probably go a bit more deeper down the arrow tuning path. Before I take it down to a forest. I was going to try and get down there this time, but I think ethically the right thing to do would be wait till probably the next one or the one after. But yeah, it's super fun.
Oh, it is, 100%. I like the idea of the hay bales. I've never needed them. So I just, I don't know. I've got to stop being generous with my mates. I've said that. They're no longer shooting my stuff. I might let them throw a tennis ball or something, maybe at a target at best. Yeah. But it's I like it. It's so much fun. And I can see at some stage I'll get a trad bow too because the compound's great fun. And then that's just another element too. And
I just love the simplicity of the trad bow. Like compound bows are cool, but I feel like I could, even in the limited amount of shooting I've done with one, I think I'm pretty accurate out to 40 or 50 meters with not that much practice.
Yep.
I think if you have reasonably good marksmanship principles with a rifle, it transfers quite easily over a compound bow.
Yeah.
But yeah, trad bow is different. It is a completely different beast.
Well, it's right up your alley because you said at the start you like a challenge.
Yeah.
And hunting's a challenge for you. So the trad bow, and that's I think why I got into the compound as well, to shoot at home because I wasn't going to be able to get out as much. And I one day want to, I've said previously, if I can knock a couple of deer over in the year and I don't need meat, I can see me going to the bow as that extra layer of practice, of difficulty, of challenge, because that's not where I'm at the moment. And that's cool. Like, you got to have your strengths and weaknesses. And I think it's so much more important with a bow to be confident in your ability and know your limitations as well, to be that ethical person. So, and I'm all about that. I mean, everybody knows that listens to the podcast. So I do like the idea of that down the track and that challenge and, pursuing that at some stage. But I've got to be better hunter before I get to that level, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely need to keep working on the accuracy with the bow. But like one thing I have found, a lot of the animals I've taken in the state forest have been at quite close range. So like certainly not within 20 meters. A couple have for sure. So I think I think my natural style of hunting gets me fairly close to animals. So I think that, the trad bow would just force me to be a bit more deliberate with that style, I guess. And yeah, it's still a great challenge. I don't really like doing the ambush style hunting. I do it. I will do that first light, last light, wait every day. But I do prefer to do a real slow stalk through an area and pay close attention to what the wind's doing and all that. So yeah, putting the two together might get me there with the bow, hopefully.
I do. That's just one of the other elements is so many people do so many different ways when they hunt. I love that too, that if you get bored with one, you can try the other, or there's another one. If you get really good at one, you can then drop to something else. That's cool. Yeah.
And I think different styles suit different weather conditions too. So it's good to be able to dip your toe in all of them. And then there's no excuse, oh, the weather's shit this weekend. It's like, well, no, just the weather's doing something. So just find something that works with that weather and crack on. Or that wind direction or whatever the case may be.
Well, you're just diversifying your talent, really. Yeah. And I like the idea of that. It's, again, you're practicing new sets of skills, and it's one I really want to get far better at is that ambush style, sit and wait. I really struggle with that. And I like exploring. I like walking. So that, for me, is one that I find some really good areas with a lot of sign, a lot of, wallows and all that sort of stuff. But then I really struggle to sit and spend time at them.
Yeah.
I'll do it for a little bit. Nothing will happen. I'm like, stuff this. I'm out. I'm going to explore. Yeah. I'm going for a walk. So I
find the longer I'm hunting, like the more days in a row I hunt, the more patient I get and the more I can sit there and wait. Whereas, when I first get there, I just want to cover a bit of ground and try and find that recent sign, and I guess to not kind of feel like I'm wasting time when I am sitting there.
Yeah.
But, don't always get that. Sometimes I'm only doing a 2-day hunt. You've got to really be deliberate about it.
I find coming towards the end, I get more impatient.
Oh, okay.
Like, I haven't got much time left. I've got to find. Right. I haven't seen anything. I've just wasted an hour.
Yeah.
Get out there and have a bit more of a look. Yeah, but hey, I mean, it's all part of the fun and games of hunting, eh? It's just that is what strives you to keep doing it. And I looked at the last hunt, we didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I'm hell keen to get out there again and see if I can change that.
Yeah.
And that's just something that keeps me ready and chomping at the bit to get out there again and have a go. So
yeah. Actually, the next thing I'll probably need to get onto in the next 12 to 24 months is practicing calls.
Yeah, okay.
And getting ready for, the rod or the roar or whatever you're going to chase.
Yep.
That's something I haven't done. I didn't take a caller on the hunt camp.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, I heard a few fellow croaking around, but yeah, I've got myself a caller now and get it out every now and then when I'm sitting out the back on a Sunday Havo.
Have a bit of fun.
But yeah, like my Kiwi mate, he can do an awesome roar. Like he can do an awesome red roar with no calling device, just with his cupped hands. So yeah, it'd be good to get to that level. It just takes practice. But you also need to hear it, right? Like you need to know what you're copying. And there's good resources on YouTube and stuff, but nothing beats hearing it in person.
No, that's it. It was one of the disappointing. I only heard a couple of croaks this time. I shouldn't say disappointing because I did hear a couple at least. And I know after hearing it the first time, I was just addicted. It's such a cool thing. And, I keep saying about, for me, there's a lot of firsts that keep ticking over, and I got to hear Roosa stag this year in their roar, if you call it a roar. I'm not even sure what the Roosa is, but yes, I'm pretty sure it's a roar. That was cool. So I haven't heard the red. I know that was on the list this year, but it got a Roosa instead, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah.
That's just all these little firsts that I want to keep ticking over and learning and hearing and exploring. It's just, it keeps me just coming back for more and more, and I love it.
Yeah. No, the learning never ends.
Well, mate, I can't, I hope you get lucky this time with your son. That's cool. I'm super excited to hear how you go. So best of luck with the next trip.
Yep.
And
cheers.
We'll have to hopefully get another trip in at some stage in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
So appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you haven't, get over and check out Athena Spatial. All the links will be in the show notes and everything. I am, as I said, a big fan of the maps and have them. So, mate, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. They are fantastic. I love it. So I'm glad you came on, and hopefully people can get out there and check your stuff out. So well done, Rob.
Thanks a lot, mate. And is your local branch going to live stream your presentation?
I hope not. There's no editing. I'm a little. I was sort of sitting there going,
you'll be live. You'll be live.
Which, look, in fairness, I'm not too stressed about. I'm a teacher, so in front of a group all the time. So it's not the biggest deal, but there's no editing. I do like that about the podcast. So no one knows when I've stuffed up. And I probably did a couple of times this episode, and you'll never know, listeners. So that's a win.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, mate, and good to catch up with you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, and we'll definitely talk soon, mate. So, all right, listeners, bye for now. If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.